Welcome to Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff, where we interview newsmakers, storytellers, and all-around interesting people. Sit back, relax, unless you're driving, and enjoy the show. Here's Jackson.
Hello. This is Not in a Huff. I am Jackson Huff. Thanks so much for being here this week. Really appreciate it. This week I'm interviewing Kathy McDaniel. Now, I always say everyone's interesting. Definitely the case. That's the point of this podcast, but absolutely interesting person this week. An interesting story, and one that, I honestly think that some people are going to listen and think, it's, I don't want to say crazy, but it's something that, whoa, this is not accurate. Just because everyone does have very long-held beliefs on the topic we're going to talk about. I have no opinion that I'm going to share here. My goal is to bring on interesting people with a story to tell. Miss McDaniel absolutely does, and she tells it in a very, inviting way. She has a great sense of humor about her. I found her extremely friendly, extremely warm. I really appreciated speaking with her. But the topic we're going to talk about is near-death experiences and heaven and hell. She wrote a book about it, but she had a near-death experience about 20 years ago, and she writes about going to hell and then also going to heaven and what that was like. Obviously that's a controversial topic between people who say, that's not possible, people that, even on the complete opposite end of the spectrum and say that, heaven and hell doesn't exist. We're not going to get into all that. At least I'm not going to get into all that. The goal in speaking with her was to share her story and share definitely a topic that I had never spoken to anyone about. I had certainly never talked to anyone who had been to heaven or been to hell or claimed to have been to either one. So I certainly couldn't pass up on that opportunity. Whether you listen to it and take it to heart and think, yeah, this is definitely factual, or whether you listen and say this is a really interesting story, I think that you can gain a lot from it either way. Towards the end we talk about, based on her experiences, what she learned, and she gives 7 tips on how to live. And whether you think everything else she said is wild, or whether you're taking it all to heart, the 7 things she says is just great advice for anyone, anywhere. So I really enjoyed speaking with her. She read just an excerpt from her book. I see why the book is a really fascinating one for sure. I think you're going to enjoy this one. As heavy as the topic is, when we're talking about heaven and hell and things like that, I think that you're going to even, think some of this stuff is humorous, just because her personality is one that is just a really inviting, friendly one. It goes without saying, I think I've made it clear, but it goes without saying that, just like every week, I bring people on that have a story to tell. Doesn't mean that I'm all for what they're saying and believe all of it, or doesn't mean that I think that it's all, not factual, just because I put this disclaimer in. But, when we're talking about controversial topics like we have a few times before, I think it's important to always say, opinions are that of the guests and not of my own. But really enjoyed speaking with Kathy. Really liked our conversation, and I think you will too. Without further ado, here is my interview with Kathy McDaniel. I am here today with Kathy McDaniel. Kathy, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Jackson?
I'm doing well. So before we get into, I guess, the bigger topics and why I brought you on, if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself outside of, I guess, kind of the experiences you've had.
Well, I've had a rather interesting life, challenging. Started off as a Navy brat. My dad was in the Navy for 30 years, so we started in the Midwest, went to the East Coast, ended up in the West Coast. I was always the new kid in school, always 2 to 4 years here and there. So I had to learn to become resilient that way, to learn to get along with people. And that was helpful, I think. And then without getting too personal, I've been married 3 times. I'm single now. Gives you any other clues. I've got 2 grown kids and a grandchild. So I seem like just about anybody you ever met, but I've had a couple of unusual experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I mentioned, the reason we brought you on, because you did write a book, which I want to, dive deeper into, but let's just kind of dive into why you wrote the book. I mean, you speak about having a near-death experience, and that's what you wrote about. So I guess kind of take me through how that happened. I mean, we're going to go into a little bit more probing questions about it, but just how it happened in general.
In general, most people don't know what a near-death experience refers to. I had one guy tell me, hey, I had a near-death experience. I almost got hit by a bus once. I says, well, no, that's not quite what happens. Yeah. You actually go to another dimension. Reality is out the window. You find yourself in some very strange place. And for me and for the people I know, you don't feel dead. I never looked at myself and said, oh, you're dead, until the very end when it was almost over. So that part was amazing to me. I was brought up a Catholic, and I always was taught purgatory is a place most people go, to burn off those little venial sins, those little nasties you did throughout your life. And if you were really bad and you weren't sorry, then you were going to go to hell and stay there. Now, the only difference was my understanding, because very few people talked about it in detail. It's just that hell was the same as purgatory, but if you got out of hell, then you were considered purgatory. It's like a waiting room in the doctor's office waiting for a root canal. It's just as bad waiting for one as there is to have one. Mm-hmm. So that part happened. And when I got back, I was kicked out of heaven. And that's why the Heaven Expat came about. And so when I got back, I was furious. And I was so disappointed. And I wanted to go back to heaven. That's just, once you're there, it's like the greatest party you ever went to with all your friends. And you don't want somebody to say, oh, 12:30, time for everybody to leave. So it took me a long time to get grounded again. And I tried to go on with my life, but with this other thing haunting me, especially the hell thing. I thought, geez, I wasn't that bad a person. How come I went there? So there was a real fear of dying again, and wonder if I ended up there again. What do I do so that doesn't happen? And most people didn't want to talk about it. My family said it was the drugs you were on. You were in a coma. You were on a ventilator for 3 weeks. You were out of it. And I thought, no, this really happened. So it took about 10 years of kind of writing about this, trying to get it out on paper, thinking if I could just get it out often enough out of my brain, then it'll go away like a bad dream. Well, it never did. So 10 years later, I ran into this group through a bunch of serendipitous events that were miraculous in themselves. And I found myself with these people called IANS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies, which is a mouthful. And I had to be drugs kicking and screaming to this group because they sounded like a bunch of nuts to me. But once I got there, I thought, oh my God, these are my people. They totally got it. I'd say, oh, well, I went to hell. Really? What happened to you? And it's like, huh? Somebody would actually listen to me. I gave a speech there that the crowd they filled the place. And that was the first time I really talked about it in public. And all these people were on the edge of their seats. And I thought, I'm a natural born storyteller. I've been a writer since I was a little girl. And so to me, all of a sudden, that feeling that it wasn't quite entertaining, but it was shared and it was understood and it was okay. And not only that, it was helpful because I had taken great pains for the last several years to really pray and ask God, what do I got to do so I never have to go through that again? I don't want my friends, my family, anybody to go there. There's got to be a way, to skip that. So I have been working on that. I've got some great feedback from God, Spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And so have been trying to live that way myself. It's very simple and just kind of spread the message. And in the meantime, I'm loving every minute of my life. I totally believe that we pick the life that we want on this earth and all the challenges. And so no longer do I feel like a victim when all, it seems like everything's going wrong. Now, instead of saying, why God are you so mad at me? What have I done? I say, wow, what was I thinking when I picked that one? Or why did I really want to be married to that person? But it's to learn lessons. And I love it. It's almost humorous. It makes life so much lighter. I mean, whether you're talking politics, your family, finances, you kind of let it go. You think, well, I planned it. I guess I'll just have to deal with it.
So what was the event that caused you to, I guess, go into this coma?
Oh, I was taking care of my ex-fiance, my best friend. We'd been together for 7 years and he helped raise my kids and he helped me start my business and he was a manager in a big company and we were just soulmates. And he was going to be transferred to the East Coast. I had my family and my business on the West Coast. We had been growing apart. We were still best friends. He calls me out of the blue and says, I need to talk to you. He flies out from the East Coast and says, I have leukemia. And he was 52 years old, 53. And I couldn't believe it. And he says, well, I'm going to this research facility up in Seattle and I need 2 caregivers and I've got one. Would you go with me? And I said, well, yeah, you bet. So I did. And it was only supposed to be for about 3 to 5 months, but he'd get better, he'd get worse, he'd get better, he'd get worse. Anyway, at the end of 9 months, he died. And I was a wreck. Physically, emotionally, I was a wreck. And so I went with a friend down to Southern California to a concert, and this raging flu was going through there, just knocking people out left and right. It was terrible. And I caught it. And so when I came back, it didn't take long before I got pneumonia and went to the doc in the box in the middle of the night. I won't go into the details. I was a sick puppy. And so they put me in an ambulance. There was I had no pulse. They got me started again. I was in the hospital overnight and they said, well, she's crashing. And so they had to trach me and stick me in a drug-induced coma so you don't rip out your tubes and stuff. And I was gone. I didn't have really a whole lot of time to think about it. My family, some of them flew out and they didn't know what was going to happen because it was called ARDS, still out there. It's acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is lung failure. And it's a terrible thing. And that's usually what happens to people that have SARS, or most likely, I've heard it called, what it is when people die of COVID. It's just lung failure. Your lungs just fill up with this glue and then it turns to cement and you die. So back then, this was 20 years ago, they really didn't know how to treat it. The pulmonologists didn't know what to do. So they were kind of experimenting with a group of us in the world that time. And that time, the success rate to survive was 38%. And that was, they didn't tell you what kind of long-term damage you would have. So that was the good news. I had a 38% chance of making it. And I was 53 years old. So after 3 weeks in the coma, at one point, they came to my folks and said, she's not going to make it, make your goodbyes. So I'm thinking it was at that time that I drifted over, and that's pretty common in comas. You're kind of loose in your body anyway. And so then I got sent back, and then boom, I opened my eyes and, oh yeah, it's party time. She's back. I couldn't move at all. I had lost all my muscle mass. I was 86 pounds. I was skin and bones. I could move one finger and blink. That's it. That was the extent of my human body. So when I'm still got all this hell and heaven stuff mulling around in my head, and I'm thinking, I was sent back because I had too much left to do. What the heck am I going to do? I can't move. I can't talk. I overheard him saying in the hall, we don't know how brain damaged she is. So I thought, depressed is probably an understatement. But it took me a full month in the ICU and then a full month in a rehab trying to get some weight on me. They had to get me to 100 pounds before they let me go. I had to learn how to walk, talk, swallow, feed myself, crawl. I couldn't do anything. All your muscle mass was gone. So I had to learn everything like a baby all over again. And it was really time consuming and painful and heartbreaking. And it was, I look at these poor COVID people and I think, wow, they survive and everybody's got balloons at the party. And it's when they let them loose. And I'm thinking, oh, dude, it's just starting for you. Sad.
Right. So if you would, without obviously giving too much of your book away, exactly what happened to you while you were in this coma? Kind of give us an abbreviated version of you kind of touched on, that you talk about going to heaven and hell. So if you would just tell us a little bit about that.
Can I read you just one little short page of how it felt to wake up in the other world?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay, because most people go to the void first, and the void is a totally dark place. There's no sensation, there's no sound. And so when I found myself there, this is how it felt. I didn't feel dead, only confused. Total darkness and absolute silence. My only references. Not daring to move, I waited. The blackness morphed into a reddish glow, dragging with it a stinking heat. Acrid fog, muffled moans, and ungodly shrieks. Oh, this can't be good. Something was staring at me. Like a blow, a voice thundered, "Do you know where you are?" My mind raced, searching for some rational explanation, but part of me already knew. Hell? I whispered. To my horror, the answer was an ear-splitting, maniacal laugh. The evil crept closer as I clamped, shaking hands over my ears. Panic surged in me, triggering the requirement for fight or flight. Fighting was not an option. I turned and ran. So that was my welcome to the afterlife.
Well, first of all, that's the heavier part is that's terrifying. The lighter part is you're a heck of a reader. I think you could just sit here and read the whole rest of the time.
I like to do it on an audiobook, but I get so emotional in some of the parts, it doesn't work for me. But yeah, that's kind of what happened. And so again, not feeling dead, I just took off and then had all these different scenarios happen. The first place was like this bombed out horrible city with these creatures in it. And I was trying to find somebody that I yelled out to some guy looking down in the fog and the burning stuff. And I saw this thing and I says, hey, over here, maybe we can get together, I'll find some food and you find some. And he said, no, we are all alone here. And I thought, oh, no. So I ran from that one. And then, boom, I found myself in another weird place with weird people, mostly demons. And they are not funny. They have no sense of humor, believe me. And so they would tease me with, if you will just do this, then we'll let you out of here. But then you try to do that. Like I was it sounds stupid, but at the time it was very horrifying. This huge blackberry field. I don't know if you're familiar with blackberries, but the huge one, as far as you could see. And in Washington State here, we have them everywhere. And I mean, the canes are really long and thick, and they've all got these thorns all over them and stuff. And this demon says, I'll let you out of here if you cut down all these canes. And I thought, what? That can't happen. And then appears in my hand is this little pair of like kindergarten kids' scissors. And I'd just given this guy the eye saying, I thought but anyway, so I thought that's the only way I'm going to get out of here. So I'm down there trying to cut these damn canes. And as soon as I cut one, it grew back. So now they're laughing, and I wasn't going to give up. He says, you've got to give up. You've got to despair. And then I says, no, I'm not. I'm getting out of here. I'm a survivor, man. I'm not going to stay here. So I started cutting. Well, boom, I'd find myself in another position. We got another situation. Sometimes there's other people there, real people. And that's why, again, I didn't think I was dead, because I saw two people I knew from real life that I had to give messages to. Try and give somebody a message that starts off with a sentence, say, I saw you in hell, and I'm supposed to tell you this. That's a real icebreaker. So, this whole thing just went on and on, and I could appear to be making light of it now. That's only 20 years later. It still haunts me. I mean, it was an awful place, but I can make light of it because that's what my family does. We use humor to lighten up things and get through them. So there was that. And then it got to the very end where I was starting to really kind of wear down. I really was starting to think, this is just going on and on and on. And the last time, and I didn't know it was going to be the last time, I did something, said something, and that's when the lights went on, and the joy just came through, and the ecstasy, and just this feeling that you can't even, it's just, you can't talk about it because there's no words. You're in a place where you don't have a body, so there's no words. Everything's all telepathic up there. It's really cool. But the coolest thing of all was I look up, and there's my friend that just died. And he looked great, because the last time I saw him, he's in bed, he's all, purple, and his hair fell out, and he was just all swollen, and a poor little guy out, and he looked great. And I thought, wait a minute, he's laughing. And I said to myself, he doesn't know he's dead. And then he's really laughing. And then I thought, oh no, if he's dead, then I'm dead. And it took a minute to sink in. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in heaven. I'm with my friend. This is awesome. And then we had some conversation, and he showed me some stuff. And then he said, I'm sorry, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. And it sunk in that I was getting kicked out. And I said, no, I wasn't going. And then boom, you end up with your family going yippee skippy, and you just are not happy. So that's in a nutshell. It's lengthy. There's a lot of detail, and over the years, I've had a chance to say, I really think about that hell thing. And one thing I want to tell people is God loves us. God doesn't judge us. We judge ourselves. People tell me they have life reviews, and you get to feel how it felt to be mean or nice or whatever to other people. And that has nothing to do with God. God is just total love. Don't tell little kids, don't hit your brother. It'll make God sad. You can't make God sad. I just learned a lot. And so you don't have to go to hell. And it's just because you brought it on yourself.
So you mentioned seeing people and demons and stuff while you were in hell, but with heaven you mentioned one person. So did you just have an experience with your friend and saw no one else?
I've had a lot of time to think about that too. Sometimes what happens, and I've heard this from other people, this is how I've come to terms or learn to understand this. A lot of times you'll see things and hear things up there, and then when you come up back, they erase them. So you can't remember. Like I remember him showing me something in this great big book, looked like a big architect's book on a table. And I remember saying, no, that's going to be too hard. I want to stay here with you. And I believe he showed me all the things that I was going to have to do. And yes, it's been hard. And, but I'm still glad I'm going to get it done. I'm telling you, I'm motivated. I want to get it all done so I can go home. And it's very common for people who've been there. You just, I'm here and I'm going to get things done, but wow, can't you wait to go home? Heaven is so great. And so, see, and God is not a person. We make God a person. You don't see God. God just is. God is everywhere. God is everything. So it's that sensation, that feeling of being one and just incredibly joyful and free. That's experiencing God. You don't see God. I kind of upset a lady. She has an evangelical church, and she wanted me to be on her podcast. And I said, honey, I don't think I'm going to fly on this one because there's no throne. There's no Jesus sitting on the right side. There's no angels without. It's just God. And yeah, people see Jesus. And they see Mary and they see a lot of other people, but you don't see God. So we had the grandest talk. And then she says, I'll call you back and set you up for a podcast. And I never heard from her again. But we had a great talk. So I don't want to change anybody. I'm not saying I'm right and everybody's wrong. I'm just saying this is my experience and a lot of other people's experience. And it's a much kinder, loving way to live. If you're not afraid all the time, that's just it. The fear is pretty much gone. And right. That's really nice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the good thing about this podcast is I try as hard as I can not to really have an opinion or at least show opinion. My biggest thing is just to talk to people and learn about them and give them an opportunity just to tell us, their story and in whatever way that they want to tell it. So I never really come at it with any kind of real opinion or hard pressing, but that is, I guess, brings up another good point of what do you say to people, given that you've had, such an intense experience and one that you are very passionate about. What do you say to people who, tell you, you probably were dreaming or none of this is true? What do you say to your I guess your detractors? Well,
I think the scientific approach was they told me when I was in the coma that they gave me something called white amnesia. It's something that they put in the mixture that totally causes your brain to not remember anything that happened to you while you're in the coma. Now, I don't remember anything in the coma that had to do with my body, but my spirit was somewhere else. My brain might have been down in that body, but my spirit and my mind was somewhere else, and it was not affected by their white amnesia. That's the explanation. And then as far as the rest of it, well, they'll just find out for themselves.
Yeah, well, that's a good explanation. I think that's kind of the clincher, isn't it? So you, you mentioned that you were in a coma for 3 weeks. Do you have any perception of time? Do you know how long this experience lasted for you?
No, the thing about eternity is it's an eternal now is the best explanation I can give you. It's just not here. We're bound by time and we measure everything by time. But once you're over there, it's just always now. And so someone can be dead for 20 minutes because they, were underwater or something, or they can be in a coma, or they can have an experience where it's near death, where they actually, they're in and they float out maybe for a couple of seconds, and then they look at themselves from the top of the operating room, and their little bodies, they stuff themselves back into their bodies. It's not definable. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you, you mentioned that you were having kind of very individualized experiences. So this may kind of explain my next question, but you talked about being in a group of other people who have had, similar experiences or at least near-death experiences. So how do you explain again, kind of just playing devil's advocate, which sounds kind
Uh-huh.
of funny. Sounds kind of funny with what we're talking about, but playing devil's advocate, how do you explain, all these other people having very, very different experiences? I assume not everyone is saying the exact same thing about their experience with heaven and hell as you are.
No, it's individual, and only about 20% of the near-death experiences are termed dark, which is mine. Distressing, dark. They don't like to say bad. It's not bad because generally people come back with lessons. It's just a way of getting the lessons across. And also they're looked at as almost like a mythical trek. In the old days, the heroes went down into the darkness, down into the hell, and learned the lessons and fought the demons, and then came back and shared the lessons with the people. So over the years, and for the many books I've read on the subject by people who have had them, it's just another experience to give you different lessons. And it's very individual, because we're all different people and have different backgrounds, but there are a lot of them. I mean, nobody's afraid to die anymore. That's number one. Number two, they say they've never been so happy, joyful, whatever, and there's not words to explain it. Three, nobody's afraid anymore. You just don't worry about things as much. And so there's some people see light, some people don't. I mean, it's just, respects the individual.
Yeah. So, obviously we're talking about this support group, for lack of better term. How supportive is your family with all of this?
Well, it was really hard for them. A, that they almost lost me, and B, that I came back and said that all religions are misinformed. Spirituality is different from being religious. And they did not take that well. I have to be careful not to force it on them, but I also ask them not to belittle or mistrust or not respect what happened to me. So we generally don't talk about it very much. It's gotten better over the years because they're in their 90s, my folks, and my sisters had a couple of experiences, like she saw my dead brother. And so they're kind of saying, now, what was that thing again? That kind of stuff. They're getting more used to it. Now, IONS is fabulous. It's worldwide. There's thousands of people that have had near-death experiences. It's fascinating to go to the conferences every year and be around all these dead people. I never feel so joyful and so happy as I am when I'm around. Oh, the energy is amazing. Just happy. And when we all have to leave and go home to the, quote, real world, it's a bummer. You just want to sit around and just be with people that know how wonderful God is.
So you, with everything that you're talking about, and this doesn't necessarily make you an expert in this area, you can say that you don't really know, but do you see that these two worlds can, I guess, intertwine? You're talking about your sister seeing your brother. Do you think that there are, spirits coming into our world? There's obviously people that have those experiences and talk about that. So do you think that that's not necessarily true, or you think that it is?
Oh, they're here all the time. I mean, we just don't learn to recognize them. Anytime, our loved ones are with us all the time. When you get in a room or a car, you've got probably, 10, 20 spirits with you all the time. They like to hang out with us. They like to support us. When you hear little whispers in your ear, a lot of the times people used to say, oh, that's your conscience or that's your guardian angel. Well, it's the spirits. They're talking to you. And you have to look for their little signs. Sometimes, like if you had a really good friend and they got killed in a car accident or whatever happened, and you hear a song that, you guys used to really like to hear together, that's them making contact. And anytime something pops into your head, like, oh my gosh, I forgot that from high school when we did such and such, that's that person reminding you, I'm here. I'm here with you all the time. You're never alone. That gets a little disconcerting sometimes. It's like, oh my gosh, how many people are in here? I better be careful what I say. But it's fun. It's fun to have, you don't miss people so much when you know they're right there. All you got to do is talk about them, think about them, and their spirits are right there with you.
So what do you?
And your pets, and your pets. There's dogs and cats, and people talk about their horses. They, when they're in heaven, they see them. They're there. Yeah. So that's also very comforting. You don't have to mourn so much. You can just be glad for them. I mean, it kind of freaks people out when they say, "Oh well, Uncle Joe finally passed away. He's been lingering for 4 years with cancer." I say, "Thank God, he is healthy and he's off seeing all his old friends. He's the lucky one." And again, people kind of look at you sideways.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're talking about the happy side of things. I mean, how do you feel about maybe the non-happy, the benevolent type spirits? Do you think
the
that's
bad
the thing?
ones? Yeah, they're out there, and they're the ones that say, "Oh, nobody's going to see you." You keep that $10, or they're there. And I don't call them to myself. I don't talk about them. I don't think about them. I don't want them in my consciousness because I know how real and horrible they are. And there is evil out there. I mean, they're yin and yang, good and bad, light and dark. They're real. And they're very seductive. And that's why they suck people in. And people say, "I don't want to get a hold of me." What did I do that for? That's the kind of thing you have to be aware of. Yeah. That's nothing to play with. Ouija boards, none of that stuff. Don't go anywhere. No. The other thing is that I love the idea of the soulmate thing and planning your life and picking your friends in heaven. And supposedly you got this group you hang with over, you maybe come down multiple times and say, "Okay, let's, I'll come into your life just for a little bit, just to check in sometime. And another time, maybe, I'm going to be your mother this time." It can get pretty wild. But I love the part about sometimes you're at a party, you're standing in line at the grocery store or something. Somebody starts talking to you. You're in an airplane and you go, I know I've met you before. Where can I know you from? And they say, "Well, I don't know. I live in Wisconsin." "Well, I know you. I know you from somewhere." Well, now I understand that they're one of our soulmates. That we said, "We'll just check in. Let's see if we recognize each other." And it happens a lot. I just for people to be aware of that you've got lots of soulmates out there that come to your rescue at the most unexpected times. And this could be even like a homeless person. When I was in the hospital, I was just a wreck, and they had to tie me to a chair. I had no muscle. I was like a rag doll. And, just skin and bone, ugly, scary looking person. And I was in a wheelchair and so now I knew how invisible I looked. Nobody would look me in the eye. They would just kind of like, didn't want to even look at me. So that stuck with me. And so anytime I see anybody in a wheelchair, any place, I'll always try and catch their eye and just say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And just the look of shock on their face, that somebody saw them. It is so amazing. Same thing with people by the side of the road that, I've got a little sign, "Please help." I'll get a sensation that's a real person that needs my help. And for a while I was keeping dollar bills or $5 bills in the car. And I rolled down my window. If the light stopped, if the traffic wasn't bad, but all these little things I had to have. And then I would, just say, "Have a nice day." And every single one of them would say, "God bless you." And that was my key. That was one of my little things I had to do before I could go home. I imagine this huge blackboard with all these little pins in it with faces on it. And when I can find these people and do a kindness, make a difference in their life, even if it's a little one, because sometimes you do something nice for somebody and you have no idea how that changes their attitudes or changes what they might have done later in that day. So, that's just kind of fun stuff has happened once you know where to look.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think that's kind of just finding the commonality in everyone's story, regardless of whether, people are listening to this and think that it's something that's real or not. Everyone can take away, just be more kind to people and just have life with a purpose. So if you would kind of, obviously it's been 20 years since this experience. How has life changed? We've talked a little bit about it, but how has your life changed since then?
Well, I think it's letting go. I can have things happen to me now that would have been quite devastating. One would be my daughter, whom I love dearly. I haven't talked to in 10 years because she got Lyme's disease or something, and she just turned on the family. She had some mental breakdown, and ordinarily that had put me in a tailspin. But I believe that we chose to be together in this life, that I would be her mom, she would be my daughter. And if I would give her the space and pray for her that she could learn whatever it is that she needs to learn, rather than mope and drink and rant and carry on, I can just accept that. It still hurts. I still miss her, but I'm allowed to let things happen and trust that it's all going to turn out okay.
Yeah. So what advice do you give to others based on the experience you've had?
I came up with these 7 words. I had, like I say, I was praying for a long time. Please, I don't want to go to hell again. How can I do it? And they came to me slowly, but I'd just like to share them. And they're so easy. Everybody knows these words, but you've already said one of them. And the big 2 are be loving and kind. If you just do those 2 things, it can't go wrong. But then we also have to be merciful, and that's a tough one. Forgiving, it's another tough one. Encouraging. A lot of times we just want to say, I don't want to hear about your problems anymore. We really need to take a minute and encourage people. We have to be grateful all the time. Non-judgmental, which for me is a biggie, and useful. And that useful kind of stumped me for a while, but then I also heard from one of my spirits or somebody said, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And if we look around in today's world, it's so easy to just blame everybody. And, we've got to be useful and do something positive and not just bitch about it, Yeah. So that's what I would suggest. If I'd say that to myself every morning, God help me to be all these things. And if you can even get 1 or 2 in a day, it's a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone can disagree with living by those 7 words for sure. So we've talked, a lot about your experience and that you wrote a book about it. If you would just kind of talk a little bit about your book, plug the book, where people can find it, what it's called.
Okay, it's called Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat, and you can find it on Amazon. And it's really a memoir. As you know, I'm a storyteller and I do have a good sense of humor. And it's about my family's background, because somebody said, well, sit down and write about your experience and how you were before, during, and after it. Well, you can't do that in 2 pages. So what happened is, and it was really quite fun, my ancestors started pouring all these stories into my head. And I just sat down at the typewriter and just started writing. And it was really fun. So it goes back to my grandparents on both sides, and they had hard lives. There's a lot of alcoholism and dirt poor farmers, and so all these people. I explain what came down genetically, hereditarily to me to make me who I was. My parents, siblings, friends, growing up, going to all those schools, being locked in a locker in junior high school, all that stuff, and then going forward to where I am now. And it's a story that is everybody's family. And but it's told with humor and kindness. So it's kind of cool. I went to that big earthquake in Santa Cruz, survived that. And so there's there's been a lot of things. I lost my first daughter, lost my baby in terrible circumstances. So there's been some pretty tough stuff in my life, but you got to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and know that this is just a play. We wrote the script ourselves. We're doing the play. Enjoy it and trust that it's all going to work out, and it will.
Yeah. So, I called you Kathy McDaniel, but your book is not Kathy McDaniel.
Oh,
what is it
no,
and why?
my pseudonym is the initials M.K. McDaniel. So you won't find it under Kathy. That's the that's the real
McDaniel.
me.
That's
MK sounds
your,
kind of proper.
Yeah, I like it though. I do. So it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. Definitely an interesting story for sure. That's the goal. Yeah.
Right.
But it's been a pleasure. And that was my interview with Kathy McDaniel. Hope you enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed speaking with her. I think she's just a fascinating, really nice person. I think we could learn a lot from her, regardless of your opinion on the actual experiences are. Those 7 things and just being kind to people and doing things with a purpose, that translates to everyone, regardless of your thoughts on this matter or regardless of your religion or lack thereof. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you came into it, I'm not saying with a complete open mind on the topic, but you came into it willing to listen and when it comes to controversial topics, definitely in religion, it's hard to hear things that don't necessarily jive with what you're thinking or what your long-held beliefs are. That's my goal is never to change anyone's mind on anything. That's just not what this podcast is about. But hope you're able to open yourself up enough. If you think this topic is a little bit different, that you're willing to open up your mind enough to gain something from this talk. Because I certainly did, regardless of what my opinions are. I gained a lot from speaking with Kathy. I think that just her positivity and her thoughts on just not being afraid of the future, I think that's just a really helpful thing for us all. So thanks so much for being here this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope to see you next time. And take it away, Chris.
This has been Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff. Thank you for listening. Be sure to join us next time, where we will interview another amazing guest who is sure to make you laugh or make you think. Or, hey, maybe even both. But until then, keep being awesome.